I want to show you how to work with the motion scroll effect and the opacity scroll effect in Muse to create an effect that looks kind of like this. Let me scroll down on the page. This is kind of a dumb page. Don't look at the design. But as I scroll in, you're going to see that content is going to actually fade and move in, and then just move with the page. And if I go back down, it fades back out. You'll see that a lot of times this happens at a lot of sites. So let me go back over to Muse and show you how we did it. So if I go back over to a page that doesn't have any effects applied, I'm going to do this to two objects. Now the objects can be grouped, it can be single objects, however you want it to work. I'm going to select both objects at once just to apply the effects at one time. Then we'll go in and change certain things for each one. If I look in the scroll effects panel over here, you see we have the motion scroll effect and the opacity scroll effect. Let's do the motion one first. If I turn it on, it's going to say, okay, we're going to start out and we're going to say we have what's called initial motion and final motion. Initial motion means how's it going to move, and how's it going to move on the page as you scroll, I should say, into the final position. The final position of what you see here in the design. Now you're going to see this weird little T right here if I zoom in a bit. Okay, this right here, this is called the key position. If I actually move it, you'll see it says key position there. The key position is something that we're going to work with a lot because the key position says as soon as the page starts scrolling, okay, right here is the top of the browser window, as soon as it starts scrolling, when this little key position, this little T handle scrolls and reaches the top, this guy right here is going to be in the final design position. So in other words, as you scroll this page, and I can't do it here, this thing's going to be moving, and as soon as the T hits the top, it's going to be stuck right here. Okay, that's called initial motion. The final motion says, okay, after the key position here, this handle hits the top of the browser window, what does it do then? Well, you could have it move back out, or move down, or move up, or there's a lot of things we could do. So we're going to just test it out. I'm going to see what it does. So I'm going to go out and preview it. And you should see that as I scroll here, give it a second, they're going to move in. Check that out. Kind of cool. Okay. Nice. All right, let me go back to Muse. Now, if we want to, you're going to see that both of them are coming in from one direction. And if you look at the initial motion here, you see the default says initially what's going to happen here is it's not going to move vertically. They're going to stay stuck in place. But you're going to see right here that they are going to come in from the left at some speed. Now, if we come in here and we say something like 3, if I type in 3 over on the right here and hit return, 3x means 3 times the scrolling speed that the user is using. Okay? So the faster the scroll speed, the more ground these are going to cover. So if you had a really slow scroll speed like 1, let's say, or you can go even like 0.5 or something, they're actually going to start just off to the left here, not too far out. Watch. Check this out. They're moving at the same speed as the browser. So if I scroll, let's say 3 inches, they're only going to move 3 inches, which means they start 3 inches over. I'm talking in inches when I should be talking in pixels, but anyway. So for us to have them move or cover more ground, we'll come over here and give it a greater speed. So I'll type in like 3. There we go. Now if I go test it, let me go test it out. You'll see that, not too bad, but they have more ground to cover. That's great. All right. Now we're going to change the picture here, the object on the right, to move a little differently. Now, by the way, I skipped this, but the final motion is fine, which means move up at the same speed as the browser and just treat it like default. There's a lot of things you could do there, but we're going to leave it alone. If I deselect and click on the picture, you'll see here that it's moving to the right, which means starting on the left. I want it to start on the right and move to the left. So we're going to switch. We're going to say, okay, have it move to the left. Everything else should be the same, but it should now work. So I go save it and look at it. You may find you need a bigger number than 3. It depends. But you'll see that there it is. Now, if you just want that to happen, that's awesome. That's cool because it just keeps going and it fades back, or it slides back out. But I want it to actually fade in. So if we go back to Muse, I'm going to select both objects that are coming in. Once again, like I said, you could have a series of objects out here. It doesn't really matter. Come over to the Scroll Effects panel. I'll click on Opacity, and you'll see that we can set opacity. If I turn this on, it's kind of bizarre, but the little handle here, if you take a look, has a few new things, okay? Has one new thing, rather. We have, if I zoom back out, we have the initial section right here. We have what's called fade position 1. We have the key position. I'm over here. And then we have the fade position 2. You can make it to where it can start, if you look over here on the right, it can start at completely non-opaque or transparent, 0%. These are transparency. It fades to 100%, and then it stays at 100%. Now, by default, it's going to look like this. It's going to say, start at 0, fade in, and then fade out as it moves. Okay? Now, if we look, you're going to see fade position 1. We're saying this is the position that it's going to start at. This is 0%. From here to the key position, it's going to go from 0 to 100. From 100, the key position, to this fade to position, it's going to go from 100 to 0 in my case. I don't want it to fade out. So I'm going to make sure that this says 100. Now we can test it out and just see what it does. So I'll save it. It should be 100%. Okay. We'll test it out, and you'll see, as I scroll, it's going to fade in. See? If you want to try adjusting how fast it fades, how slow it fades, that type of thing, you can go back into Muse and you can adjust these options: fade position 1, key position, and fade position 2. You can also drag these little handles. Unfortunately, we can't drag 2 at once, so I could say, hey, let's move this up a little bit. Start it sooner. It's going to take longer to fade in. That's what that's saying. See how it's longer? It's taking longer to fade in. It's a much longer progression there. If we go back to Muse, let me undo. You can undo setting those. I'll make these even closer to the key position, and it's going to take less time to fade. They're actually different now, unfortunately. So what I could do is come over here and say, let's set them both at the same time. So I'll say like 100. You'll see where it is. I'll set it at like 180. Let me move it up a little bit here. Move it down, rather. There we go. I'm doing it numerically just so that they change it the same way. Okay. Short transition between 0% and 100% now. So watch. Fade in. See how fast that is? So you can affect how it works. Anyway, there's a lot of things we can do with this. There's some really cool effects you can get, but I just wanted to give you a combination of scroll effects that give you this type of effect that you see out there on the web today.